Have you ever felt like you see the world differently? Like your thoughts dive deeper than the conversations around you? You walk through life feeling like an outsider, not because you don't understand the world, but because you understand it too well. You analyze, question, and reflect in a society that seems to value quick answers and surface-level thinking. If that resonates with you, then you might be what Carl Jung once described as an old soul, a deep thinker navigating a shallow world. Let's talk about the pain and the power of being a deep thinker. The struggle of awareness. Imagine standing on a hilltop, watching people move through the world below. They follow the routines, the rituals, the expectations. But from your vantage point, you see patterns. You see the consequences of unconscious choices. You see the cracks in the system. This awareness, though enlightening, is isolating. Because when you try to share what you see, you're met with confusion, or worse, dismissal. It's not that people are unintelligent. It's that many are too distracted or too afraid to confront the questions that unsettle them. They've been conditioned to avoid discomfort, to embrace convenience, and to fear ambiguity. But as a deep thinker, ambiguity doesn't scare you. It fascinates you. This kind of awareness is like seeing the matrix code behind everyday reality. You start to recognize how much of life is performative, how people wear masks to fit into roles handed down by society. It becomes nearly impossible to look at a billboard or a news broadcast without noticing the subtle manipulations at play. And when you try to bring these insights to light, you're met with eye rolls or accusations of being negative or conspiratorial. You see through the distractions, the endless scroll, the curated lives, the empty slogans. You question systems others accept. You ask why we worship productivity, why we demonize vulnerability, why we chase status instead of connection. And when no one around you seems to be asking those same questions, the silence can feel deafening. You realize that much of what is called normal is actually a series of unconscious compromises. The daily grind, the 9 to 5, the quest for upward mobility, it often comes at the cost of the soul. You begin to wonder, is this all there is? Is life just a series of obligations, or is there something deeper calling us? This awareness extends to all areas of life. You may find it difficult to engage in conventional activities that others find satisfying. Small talk feels draining. Consumerism feels hollow. You crave something more, something real, something eternal. Why deep thinkers feel misunderstood. Let's go deeper. Why do deep thinkers often feel alone in a crowded world? Because they crave meaning. While others are content with small talk, you hunger for conversations about existence, consciousness, purpose, and truth. You're not satisfied with, that's just the way it is. You want to know why it is and how it could be better. You reflect on morality while others gossip about celebrities. You wonder about the fate of the universe while others argue over trending hashtags. This isn't about feeling superior. It's about living on a different frequency. Deep thinkers often speak a language that the world hasn't learned to hear. They ask questions that don't have easy answers. And in a society addicted to certainty, that makes people uncomfortable. You're not trying to be mysterious or distant. You simply think differently. You process life through a philosophical lens, constantly searching for the why behind every what. This drives some people away because it forces them to confront their own unexamined beliefs. In truth, the discomfort they feel isn't with you. It's with the mirror you hold up to their lives. You might also notice that deep thinkers are often empaths. You feel the emotions of others intensely. You absorb the atmosphere of a room, the tension in a conversation, the sorrow behind a smile. Your inner world is rich, but it can also be overwhelming. And sometimes you doubt yourself. You wonder if maybe you're too much, too intense, too serious, but you're not. You're simply someone who sees what others haven't yet looked for. The weight of consciousness. There's a psychological toll to deep thinking. You carry the weight of awareness. You notice the suffering others ignore. You see injustice, hypocrisy, manipulation. You're sensitive to the pain of others and feel a duty to speak out, to heal, to create change. But when you express your thoughts, people might call you too sensitive, too intense, or tell you to lighten up. You're not trying to be intense. You're trying to be honest. You don't wear masks. You don't do well with superficiality. You crave authenticity. And that's rare in a world dominated by appearances. The more conscious you become, the more isolated you may feel, because you no longer fit neatly into the social structures that depend on conformity. You begin to outgrow relationships, careers, even identities you once embraced. It's a kind of shedding, a painful but necessary evolution. You begin to notice the small things, like how someone's eyes dim when they speak about their job, or how quickly people change the subject when the conversation gets too real. You start seeing the dissonance between what people say and what they truly feel. And that awareness, while powerful, can be overwhelming. It can lead to existential fatigue. The constant awareness, the inability to switch off, can make the world feel heavy. You may crave silence, not because you hate people, but because the noise of the world becomes too much. Historical deep thinkers who were outsiders. Let's not forget, some of the greatest minds in history were considered outcasts in their time. Socrates was executed for corrupting the youth of Athens, not because he taught them lies, but because he taught them to think. Galileo was placed under house arrest for challenging the church's view of the universe. Nietzsche spent his life challenging conventional morality, only to die misunderstood. Even Buddha and Jesus, figures of profound spiritual insight, were rejected by their societies before being revered by future generations. These were not troublemakers. They were truth seekers. And then there were thinkers like Kierkegaard, who walked alone in the streets of Copenhagen, wrestling with the contradictions of Christianity, or Simone Weil, who abandoned comfort to immerse herself in the suffering of the working class. These people weren't just intellectuals. They were warriors of the soul. James Baldwin, Hannah Arendt, Carl Sagan, and others dared to speak truths the world wasn't ready for. They challenged racism, authoritarianism, anti-intellectualism, not for fame, but for justice. They remind us being misunderstood is often the first sign you're on into something real. Deep thinking and mental health. Now let's address something important. Deep thinking can sometimes lead to anxiety, depression, and existential dread. When you're constantly questioning everything, it's hard to feel settled. You're aware of mortality, of injustice, of suffering. You notice every contradiction, every lie, every fake smile. That awareness can be heavy, but you're not broken. You're awake. You see what others are too distracted to notice. And while that awareness can hurt, it also means you're more equipped to change things, to heal, to innovate, to inspire. There is a shadow side to every gift. For the deep thinker, that shadow can manifest as overthinking, isolation, or melancholy. But it's important to remember, you're not alone in that darkness. Many great minds have walked through it and used it as fuel for their work. From Van Gogh to Virginia Woolf, From Alan Watts to David Foster Wallace, history is filled with examples of people who wrestled with their minds and still created beauty. And mental health isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a sign that you're human, that you feel deeply, that you're alive. But being alive in this world, truly alive, requires immense courage. The gift of depth. Depth is not a curse. It's a gift, a powerful one. Deep thinkers are often the artists, the philosophers, the writers, the scientists, the ones who imagine better futures. They're the visionaries who challenge the status quo, not because they want to rebel, but because they want to evolve. The world needs deep thinkers, especially now. In an age of noise, we need quiet reflection. In an age of division, we need unity. In an age of speed, we need stillness. Depth allows us to feel more, see more, and ultimately be more. It's not an easy path, but it is a meaningful one. Deep thinkers plant seeds in the dark. They write books that won't be understood for decades. They make art that stirs something ancient in the soul. They hold space for grief, for mystery, for beauty. They remind us that there's more to life than achievement and applause. How to survive as a deep thinker. So how do you survive in a world that often misunderstands you? Find your tribe. Seek out others who value depth. They're out there, reading, creating, reflecting quietly. When you find them, you'll feel less alone. Create. Use your thoughts as fuel for art, writing, music, or innovation. Transform your inner world into something others can experience. Set boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Protect your energy. You don't have to explain your depth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Practice self-compassion. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to carry the world on your shoulders. Rest, reflect, heal. Learn to speak both languages. Meet people where they are. You don't have to dumb yourself down, but you can express your depth in ways others can digest. Find beauty in solitude. Sometimes the solitude you feel isn't a punishment. It's a space for creation. Learn to see it as a sanctuary. Read the great minds. Immerse yourself in the works of thinkers who came before you. They will remind you that you're not alone in your questions. Ground yourself. Stay connected to your body, nature, and the present moment. Thinking deeply is powerful, but so is simply being. Stay curious. Let your questions evolve. Embrace not knowing. Wonder is your superpower. Keep going. The road is not easy, but it's worth it. Every step you take lights a path for someone else. The world needs you. Deep thinkers often feel like they were born in the wrong era, but maybe you were born exactly when you were needed most. In a time of superficiality, your depth is radical. In a culture of conformity, your authenticity is revolutionary. You may not always be understood. You may not always be accepted, but your presence matters. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs more seers, more feelers, more thinkers, people who can imagine a better future and ask the hard questions no one else dares to ask. Don't shrink to fit in, expand to uplift, because one deep thinker can awaken a generation. So if you have ever felt like an outsider for your thoughts, remember this: you are not alone. And while society may fear deep thinkers, it is deep thinkers who push humanity forward. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced rejection for thinking deeply?